Hey everybody, welcome back into this magic room called the Zoom room. I sit here up to 10 hours a day talking to people that I never even knew existed 10 minutes before they walk into the room. I have no idea who these people are. They signed up to be on the show, to talk with a stranger, and the whole purpose of the show is to have two people come into a room, have no idea who each other are, and sit down and have a conversation and see what happens. Some of the conversations are amazingly insightful. Some of them are incredibly boring. You never know what we're going to have. All of them are fabulous to listen to. I want to say, without taking too long, that this show is being sponsored by the book over my left shoulder. It's the Mosaic. It's the story about a boy who loses his parents 2 years apart on the same day. And when he asks the adults where his parents are, they tell him they're in a place called heaven. So he sets out instantly to find that place called heaven because he wants to see his parents again. The people he meets along his journey are not the people he thinks he's going to meet initially. They're not the clergy and the rabbis and the priests and the shamans and the swamis and the gurus and the teachers and the medicine women. They're common ordinary people. They're the street worker and the trash man and the road and the artist and the blind woman and the homeless guy. And he wonders, why am I sitting with these people? Like, what are these people going to tell me about heaven? But in every single case, when he sits with them and listens to them tell their stories, what he realizes is the person that he sees now in front of him is entirely different than the person he first came up to. And that isn't because they've changed, it's because his preconceived notion of who they are has changed. When he has that experience over and over and over again, he starts to wonder, do I see anything in the world the way it is, or do I see everything the way I am? At that moment, he looks to his right. He sees a monk who unzips the sky and walks him into a parallel reality where he meets the wise one who's the keeper of the mosaic. At that point, the book changes. Something happens. New things come to visibility. If that's interesting to you, we would love my sponsor would love for you to buy it. It's available on Amazon.com. It's a fabulous story for what it's a fable. It tells a beautiful story. But it also has something that it shares with you in the spaces between the words, which is also valuable. The mosaic itself says, once you hold it in its hands, it means it's found you. So when it finds you, beware, because it has something that will guide you. It has a journey that will guide you through. All that is all that. Right now, I am in the room, in this mystical, magical Zoom room with Cindy Coan. Cindy Coan, how are you? Who are you? And what's important to you? Welcome to Conversations.
Well, thank you, Danny. I'm so glad to be here. What I do and who I am, I'm a career coach. And I also focus on some travel. I think you've probably talked to some of my friends. I do travel for solo and confident women to travel alone. So we do some trips as a group to help bridge that gap and build confidence in that area. And that kind of ties in with the coaching that I do. So that's what I do, when I'm not doing this or during the pandemic, doing other things that keep me busy.
So what's important to you?
People are important to me. And I think that's why I ended up in the coaching business is I found in my corporate life, I used to work in IT and technology for big, large corporations. And I found that my real takeaway from work was when I was able to help people. I was typically a manager. I led a group of network engineers. That's what I was doing. And the real satisfaction came from when I could help guide those people on their careers and help them move forward. And there just wasn't enough of that in the day. There was too much other stuff going on. And I found myself, wanting to do that all of the time instead of just a small portion of the day. And I still feel that way. The travel portion came from a year long that I took in 2016 to travel on my own as an attempt to avoid the empty nest syndrome. My children had all grown up. I sent my daughter off to college, and I did not want to sit at home alone for the next couple of years and miss them. So I decided to take a year off and travel. When I did that, I was shocked how many people were shocked at me. People were just surprised that a woman would go alone. that anyone would go alone. And then I found that it was really important that I both share that experience as well as try to encourage people to have that experience and not be afraid. So I think when you ask me what's important, I think it's people. I definitely find that whatever I can do to help and work with other people.
And I know this is going to sound obvious, but put the obvious reason aside. Why is it so important for you to help people?
I know it's something that helps me. I get gratification from that. It's not a selfless act. I definitely feel good when I do that. And as a parent, it's definitely been a joy to have other people that I can help on a regular basis and finding opportunities to do that. As I said, it's a very personal thing. I feel good when I'm able to see somebody change. And I know it's not a selfless act. It's very much for me and that gratification that I get from seeing someone else light up, change, transform.
Yeah, so. I love that. What makes you happy?
Ooh, lots of things. All the things that we're talking about. But I think I'm the happiest when I'm outside. I like to be outside in greenery. It doesn't matter. I live in Los Angeles. I live in a city, and I can find, nooks and crannies of that here. And I really enjoy being in the outdoors. I do a lot of camping and a lot of those sort of activities, but I love to be outside.
Fabulous. If money weren't important, what would you do?
Travel, see the world constantly.
And so with people and travel and outdoors being so important, what's pandemic done to you?
Oh, it's so hard. And especially this last week because we have fires in California. So being outside is very difficult. Not interacting with people. I'm a bit of a introvert when I'm home. I spend a lot of time in my house doing my own thing, but I do need to see people. And even when I'm working at home, I will just get up and go to the coffee shop or go to the store just so I can have that like people face-to-face interaction with another human being, even if it's just thank you for, ringing me up today. And I miss a lot of that. I don't get that often. I don't go out as often as I used to. I used to go every day just to do, as I said, just errands, nothing important, but just to see people. I get energy from the other people that I'm around, and I'm missing that. I find that's very difficult. And these Zoom calls do not do it. I do them with friends and family, but it still just doesn't, that energy that you typically get from a live human being, I'm definitely missing that.
I beg your pardon. I understand.
Yeah.
So if you were alone, would you be unhappy? Because it sounds like a lot, like if you were stuck in a room where you couldn't get out, not because someone locked you in there, but because you chose to go in there. I remember years ago, I did a 10-day Vipassana retreat. And I was put into this room, and first few hours, 4 or 5 hours, I was in ecstasy. Right. And about 8 or 10 hours into it, I started knocking on the door, like, what's going on? Is anybody going to check in on me? Is anybody bringing food? Is anything happening? And they came finally, and I said, boy, I'm upset with everything. And they said, well, oh, gosh, we should take you to see our teacher. And I went to see the teacher, and he said, hi, Danny, what's going on? And I said, I'm upset. He said, really? Well, tell me, were you upset from the moment you walked into the room? I said, no, I was actually had the most beautiful first few hours. I mean, for 5, 6, 7 hours, I was incredibly happy. And then all of a sudden I was like, where is everybody? What's going on? Do they just lock you in the room? They don't come out? And he said, so what changed?
Yeah.
Did the temperature change? Did the lighting change? Did the room change? What changed to make you go from very blissfully happy to very unhappy? What changed? And I said, I guess I changed. That I'm the only thing that changed. He said, okay, go back into the room and sit with that.
Yeah, I would do okay. The question you had was, would I do okay if I had to be alone? And I do pretty good, and I can do that for quite a while. I found when I was traveling alone the year that I had sort of I had to go back and forth from being with people. So I could do about 2 to 4 weeks solid interacting with people, living with roommates and living in hostels and doing that kind of thing. And then I needed at least a couple of weeks of just nobody talking to me. where I was just, not much interaction. I kind of need that to refuel and a little bit of privacy. And I probably do okay about 6 to 8 days without talking to another human being. But I would say, if with that expectation, knowing that I wasn't going to do so, but I would say about the second week or so, I would start to pull my hair out and have trouble motivating myself, because as I said, I know I get energy from other humans. So missing that.
Let's change it up a little bit. Lightning round. I suck at lightning rounds.
Okay.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Conservative or liberal?
Liberal.
Shy or outgoing?
Outgoing.
Have you felt like you fit into the world since you've been here? Do you feel like you fit into this world, or have you always felt a little bit different?
I know I'm different, but I think everybody's different. So, okay. I mean, I think that when I was younger, I wasn't sure how different I was. So whether I fit in or not, I didn't really know that, whether I matched with other people and met their expectations. Yeah. And I don't know that it really bothered me too much when I was younger. I mean, I know it was something that I contemplated, and something, especially in your youth, you think about how you fit in and where you belong. But I've always been pretty comfortable in my own skin. That's definitely there. And I know that has to do with my parents have done that. So thankfully.
Do you think you're unique in not feeling like you fit in, or do you think a lot of people?
Oh, I think everybody feels that way all the time.
So I love that. So, which was a surprise to me, because a lot of people that I asked, that 95% of them say they don't fit in. And so what interests me is, why do you think people who don't fit in, and large majorities of people, try so hard to fit into a world that they don't fit into, and they're never meant to fit into?
That's a good question. Why? Why would you? I always say, why would I want to fit in? I don't want to be like everybody else. I do want to be unique and special. And that's an important part of being human, is being unique. But I think for some people, fitting in is an acceptance, and it's acknowledgement that they're okay, and that they're good enough. And I think people struggle with that, and they feel like if they don't fit in, then they don't meet those pieces of criteria. And as I said, I can thank my parents, because my mom was really good at making me feel good enough, right? And I think that has a lot to do with what people feel. If you've always struggled to fit in or feel accepted or good enough, that'll probably haunt you forever. It's something that you just never let go of. We all have moments of it. I do. Everybody does. When you don't feel like you match, right? Like, I'm not good enough or doing the right thing, but not all the time. Yeah.
Especially in the world we live in now, where people of color are being, not now, it's not, I mean, for 400 years, we've not treated people of color equally. Women haven't been treated equally. Minorities of all sorts haven't been treated equally. So I understand why people want to fit into a world where they would be treated equally.
Right.
But how are you doing really in the world that we're living in now, with a pandemic and civil rights protests and Me Too movements and organizations around us crumbling, and systems that we believed in falling apart, with chaos in our presidential elections and turmoil going on the streets? How are you really?
I have good days and bad days, I think, like everybody else. Some days when I just want to scream and yell at people and tell them to, listen up, pay attention, what are you doing? And other days when I think, I see good things happening, like, oh, that's a good step, right? We're going in the right direction. And I think I go through that. But honestly, when I talk to friends and family about it, I continue to say, and I really do believe that what's happening is a good dialogue. It may not be right what we're doing right now. All of the Me Too movement, the Black Lives Matter, all of those movements may have the pendulum may have swung too far one direction or the other, but it's a good conversation. It's a good dialogue to have so we can figure out where we belong, because where we're at isn't okay in any of those areas. We're not in the right spot.
I agree with you. Do you think we are having a conversation now when you look at the world, or do you think people are just talking?
I think some people are having a conversation. And I think people with open hearts and open minds are having conversations. Um, I've been surprised to see conservative family members and friends start talking about things that I never thought I'd hear them say. Um, and I think it's because they have to pay attention. Some are still building walls and, backing away from it and being defensive about it, but others are listening. And I think listening is the most important thing we can do, which is a great idea on your show here, Danny, because we just have to listen to people. Open your heart, open your mind, pay attention. You don't have to agree, but listening is really important.
It's so interesting you say that, because it's really what I'm doing with the show, because in
Right.
my life I've had the opportunity to sit with some of the richest people in the world and to sit around their dinner tables and meet their parents and play on the floor with their kids, and have them give me counsel and have them occasionally ask for my counsel. And I've also had the opportunity to sit on street corners with the poorest of the poor. I've met their friends and their family occasionally, and I've had the opportunity to sit with them and have them give me counsel and sometimes ask for my counsel.
Right.
And what I found is it doesn't matter what religion you are, what practice you practice, what side of the border you live on, what color the skin, how big your house or how torn your cardboard box. All of them wanted the same thing. We all wanted to be loved and accepted, listened to and heard, acknowledged and validated.
Yeah.
Not one person in the 65 years of my life has ever said to me, you need to agree with me. And they've always allowed me to have the beliefs that I've had, because I've always allowed them to have the beliefs that they have.
Right.
And yet I look out into the world that we're living in now, and people are defriending each other because of the
Yeah.
beliefs that we have.
Right.
Why do you think beliefs have become so important in this world today? Why do you think it's so important that people have other people believe like them or fight over their beliefs, when some of my friends, my best friends, have the most crazy beliefs? I would never do what they say to do.
Right.
But I'd take a bullet for them if I had to.
Right. I think it's hard when you hear somebody on the other side believing something so much on the antithesis of where you are, and believe that they have good intentions. And that's something that I've recently had to remind myself when I'm speaking to friends and family, about political things and some of the movements. It's like, I have a certain how to get there that I think we should be doing. And their how to get there is very different from mine. But I think where we want to go is the same. I think what we want ultimately is the same. And I don't think they realize that, or even sometimes I know that, and I have to ask myself, am I arguing about the how we get there? Because that's silly. We all want the same thing. Let's get back to what we actually want and focus on that sort of common ground that we all agree to. It is it's really hard to see so much anger, name calling, pushing back in the world today, in media and so forth. It's disappointing. I mean, I have said to many people, it's not behavior I would encourage in my children when they were 7, certainly not when they're 27 or 57. And I watch some people behave that way. It's not not how we're supposed to act when we disagree. And I'm pretty disappointed that we, as a community, and it's not just the United States, it's happening all over the world in some of these movements, where we feel we've just sort of resorted to this childlike behavior.
So can I share an interesting perspective with you? Just
Sure.
to get I want your input on it. I told you I've sat with all these amazing people, and I've told you I've heard counsel from all these amazing people. I've also been with some of the most inspired people in the world who have inspired other people for their livelihood and done the same type of situation. And yet the person that's probably impacted my life more than any person that I've met has been my daughter.
Yeah.
My daughter's developmentally delayed, and she can't speak like you and I speak. And so what happened is, and I wish I could say that I was sensitive and smart and I could figure this out, but I couldn't figure it out. For about 15 years of her 31 years of life, she would go through this pattern where she would say something, and most of the time she says stuff, I understand it, but sometimes I don't. And when I didn't understand it, she would scream it. At the top of her lungs sometimes she would scream it. And I thought, okay, I still don't understand it, but she's, I know she's trying to tell me something. And when that didn't work, she would have a tantrum. And I wish sometimes it would happen tick, 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 tock, so it could all get through itself. But sometimes the tantrum wouldn't come until hours later, or the screaming wouldn't come until hours later. We could be in a restaurant or at a friend's house or in a store, or we could be just on the beach walking, or we could be in the car. And the tantrum would come, and it would be seemingly out of nowhere. But now looking back, I see it was speak, yell, tantrum. And then when she didn't get what she wanted with the tantrum, she would attack. She would come at me and try and rip my shirt or bite me or do something. And for 15 years that went on. That's a long time.
Yeah.
And finally, I looked at her coming at me in the midst of her rage, and I said, Elisa, you know I love you. You know how much I care for you. You know how much I want to understand you. I just can't understand your words. Will you please communicate to me in a way that's other than using your words? And she looked at me and stopped dead in her tracks.
Yeah.
And a smile came on her face, and she said, I am Daddy. And I said, what the hell do you mean you are Daddy? Like, how are you doing that? And she put her finger to her side of her head. And I understood instinctively right off the bat that she was putting thoughts into my head, telepathically. Because she couldn't say them, she was communicating in the way she knew how to do it, which was second nature to her, to telepathically put it into my head and for me to understand it. And I heard those thoughts. I just didn't trust that she was even capable of thinking those thoughts, let alone communicating to me telepathically.
Okay.
And I said, you little son of a gun, have you been putting thoughts into my head? And she started to laugh, this uncontrollable laugh of just relief.
Oh.
And we laughed together for 15 or 20 minutes, which seemed like it was like 10 years. From that moment on, she's never yelled, tantrumed, or attacked. And I thought, wow, I finally have a way to understand my daughter. I know what she's doing now.
Right.
But I got greedy. I said, I wonder if that's how everybody in the world operates. Do they do that in families, in businesses, in government? Do they do that in the way where our political affiliations are going? How are we doing that? Are we doing that all across the table like this? And darn if I didn't see exactly those same behaviors happening.
Yeah.
When people spoke and they didn't get heard, they yelled.
Yep.
When they yelled and they didn't get heard, they created turmoil. They created scenes. They created campaigns and rallies and all sorts of things, and started to yell at each other and make fun of each other and do all sorts of things. And when they did that, and that didn't work, they started to attack.
Yep.
My daughter, who was developmentally delayed, gave me the key to retrofitting that whole situation back. By just realizing that if we could take time to just listen and really understand what someone was saying, we wouldn't need to yell. We wouldn't need to tantrum. We wouldn't need to attack. Your thoughts on that?
Oh, I completely agree. I know that's where the protests are coming from. They're not feeling heard. And if you're not listening and the change isn't happening fast enough, people start to throw a fit. And that's what's happening. And we all do that. I mean, I think everybody does that. As I said, when I say some days are better than others, I know that that's the kind of churn that I'm going through personally, right? I'm okay because I feel like I was heard and I see validated in actions that people are doing. And then 2 or 3 days later, I feel like I'm banging my head against the wall. And now I want to scream at people because I'm not being heard. And, my opinions are not being validated and supported by others. It's a very obvious, but not so obvious cycle that we go through. Yeah.
Well, it took me 15 years in the company of my daughter, who I love more than anybody, and to understand that there's always a way to hear somebody, and we just need to take the time to find the way to listen to what they're saying, and then they don't need to go throughout and act out. And if we don't, right now we're in the tantrum phase.
Right.
If we don't listen now, we will definitely go into the attack phase.
Exactly. That's where we're going to go.
That's the modality of what happens. But we have the complete power to change it all by just changing it all and just finding a way to listen.
Right.
What are you most scared of?
Oh, God. I don't know. I think like everybody else, I'm afraid of failure and my own failure, of things that I didn't do well, especially with the people and my family that you care about, not doing the right thing or not meeting their expectations. Those are the biggest fears. But yeah, overall, I feel like I do pretty good there. But that's where my real fear is with that. Yeah.
I love that. How honest. I had someone on the show not too long ago. He is the only fail coach that I know. And I said, how in the world are you a fail coach? Who would hire you? I mean, everybody hires a coach so that they can succeed, not fail.
Yeah.
And so he said it was actually a brilliant marketing thing that a friend of mine came up with, because nobody who succeeds does so without failing a lot of times first.
Right.
And so he teaches people and encourages people how to fail so that they can then not stop taking risks and succeed.
That's a beautiful thing, because you have to I talk a lot about stepping outside your comfort zone, doing things that don't feel normal, doing things that, that stretch you and make you feel uncomfortable. It's that space, that little uncomfortable space. That's when you're learning and growing. And it's the only time you're learning and growing. If you're doing things that you feel comfortable doing, then it's not a new thing. It's not a growth opportunity. So the more you can do that, and he's absolutely right, you need to fail 1,000 times to succeed once. Takes a lot of those.
So with that beautiful understanding that you have, let me ask you again, what are you most scared of?
Oh, God. Like I said, I don't know. Failure of all kinds.
But once you realize that failure is essential to success, why would you still be scared of failure?
I think that's a good question. Thank you for pushing that, because I think it's really of disappointing, of the failure, not of hurting and impacting the people around me. Failure is okay as long as it only hurts me or minimally hurts others. But when your failure can impact people you care about in a big way, that's the real concern, is that my failures do not impact people that I care about or people in general.
Have you ever had a situation where your failures have impacted people in a big way?
All the time. You're a parent. It happens all the time. Yeah, I've definitely had.
And have they ever healed? Has the result of that in the long run ever been different than what you thought the result would be?
Has it healed? For sure. Those moments have definitely been either discussed and moved on from, but the fact that it occurred does not change my feeling about it. I still, even though we've moved on, even though I know that it's okay now, we're past it, the fact that I did that my actions hindered or hurt someone else is not something I ever get to let go of, and something that you hold on to.
Let me get really personal with you for a minute.
Okay.
Not from your end, but let me be vulnerable with you from my end. I was part of a spiritual community for a lot of years. I was a big proponent against affairs. I couldn't understand why anybody could have an affair or would have an affair. And darn, wouldn't you know it, that I'm standing in front of our market and a woman walks by me. And I don't think she walked by me, she actually walked through me. Some of her DNA remained in my body and some of my DNA went into her body. And I was a married man. And as much as we fought it, and as much as we fought it for 6 months, we fought it, we had an affair. that affair was devastating to me. There was no way to win because my two core values went against one another.
Right.
One is I had a deep desire to be loved and heard, and the other was I had a deep desire to remain as a man of integrity. And when those two core values were in opposition to each other, rationally you could say, well, yeah, get a divorce from your wife and then go with but those things have a time frame of their own, and I wasn't in control of that. That hurt me for a lot of years. I felt like I had a hole in my soul for a long time. And I thought, how could I ever say that I'm a man of integrity again? Because a man of integrity isn't somebody who has an affair on his wife.
Right.
When I talk about a long time, I mean a long time. I don't learn quickly. And I sat with that for a really long time, thinking, how does a man of integrity reclaim his integrity after he does something that lacks integrity and hurts people?
Right.
I hurt my wife. My wife ended up getting late-stage breast cancer 10 months after I told her, and dying a painful death. The woman I had the affair with ended up suing me because she was just so hurt in the community that I was a part of. She didn't win from me. She won from the community, but I hurt a lot of people. It was only about 5 or 6, maybe 10 years ago, I can't remember because my memory's not that good, that I realized a man of integrity isn't perfect. He doesn't ever not make a mistake.
Right.
A man of integrity, that's not the definition of integrity, or else no one would have integrity because nobody's perfect. I realized a man of integrity falls down, does something wrong, hurts people, but then has the courage to stand up and say, I'm sorry. Has the courage to admit that what he did was wrong. Has the courage to go up to all the people involved in the situation and sit with them and say how sorry he is to do that, and to grow from that and to never do it again.
Right. Right.
That integrity took on a new meaning for me. So instead of being a hole in my soul where I could never have integrity again, I found a new meaning in it that I would have never come across had I not gone through that. And I think the meaning that I have now of integrity is a much truer meaning than the mythological meaning that I gave it of you do everything right and never do anything wrong.
Yeah.
And so without walking into that pain, without walking into that place where I hurt people, I hurt myself, I hurt others, I don't think that would have ever happened. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's, as I said, in some of these situations where I've, made mistakes or done things and it's impacted my family or friends, that's the only thing you can do is to go back and acknowledge your failure, pick yourself up and move on. I mean, I mentioned my mom a couple of times and she's always said, if you're not making mistakes, you're not learning. And it's never a mistake if you learn. Yeah. So kind of goes both ways as long as you learn something. So, I mean, I've definitely learned from most of my mistakes, found some way to find some positive things from there, as well as try to have that integrity. That is a hard thing to do. Sometimes you don't have that opportunity to apologize or make amends or whatever that takes. Sometimes that's not given to you, but you still have to do it yourself. And make amends with yourself. But as I said, then that doesn't change when I talk about it or when it's brought back up. The hurt that I know that I caused other people, that, still stays with you. And it's still part of who you are.
So I'm just interested now because I'm not challenging your point of belief. I just want to hear what you have to say. Okay,
sure.
Because it's so interesting to me because it's personal to me also. So I'd love your input on it. Do you believe things happen for a reason?
I don't, that whole, everything's supposed to happen. I don't know about that. Because I believe in free will. I believe we do things and we have a path and we have the ability to change our direction. I do believe that with the right strength and the right support, you can get past anything. I don't think there's anything life can dish at you that you can't move past. But that means you need support and, help along the way. Nobody can do it alone. If things
So
happen
you're
for
answering a slightly different question than I'm asking.
Yeah.
What
You're asking.
I'm asking, do you believe, because I think the issue I really want your input on, which I really appreciate, and I thank you for going into this place, which is a complicated, hard place
Sure.
to talk about, which is those places where we do something where we hurt another person.
Right.
And I wonder if you believe that life has a purpose in everything that happens. In other words, is there some reason why people had to get hurt by what we did, and is there something in hurting them in the short run that might help them in the long run?
I still am going to go back and say I don't believe that everything happens for a reason, meaning everything is destined. But I do believe, as my mom said, there is a lesson in everything that occurs to you. And anytime you're hurt or fall down or fail, the first thing you have to do is look at how you can learn from it and grow from it. At least maybe the second thing, because sometimes you just have to feel hurt. But really looking and acknowledging that you're going to grow as a person, because you can't not grow. And tough things, it's often said somebody who's had a really tough, challenging life has grown an awful lot. Those people are often the most mature, sound individuals because they've been beaten up a lot. And they've had to, pull themselves together many, many, many times. So I don't know that it has to happen, the first part of the question, but is there always something behind it? There should be, and you have to find it. Sometimes it's not so obvious.
Can I get more personal with you and more intimate?
Sure.
So after I had the affair on my wife, and my wife she died the most painful death of cancer you could ever imagine. She was for 2.5 years in blood-curdling, screaming pain for 45 minutes on, 45 minutes off, all day, all night. And I obviously thought that I'd brought that onto her by having an affair and putting a stumbling block in the way of a blind woman.
Big.
And so I went to a friend of mine who happened to be a psychic. And I asked her if she could tell me, now that my wife has passed, if there anything my wife is trying to say to me. And she said something that was really beautiful. She said, "You have any idea how much your wife loves you?" And I said, "Yeah, we loved each other. I mean, we clearly loved each other." She said, No, I'm asking you, do you have any idea how much your wife loved each other? You. And I said, "Maybe not. Tell me more." And she said, "Do you know that your wife, are you a different man today than you were when you had the affair?" I said, "Oh my God, absolutely. Even a rock would be different from all that went right. But I'm completely different. The things that are important to me are so totally different now." And she said, "What if I told you that your wife is telling me now that she knew that it would make you a different man? That she came into this life to play out the role that she had to play, to allow you, to have you go through the things you had to go through, because she loved you so much that she even took on the pain of her death and the death that she took to help you maintain the space that you're in right now, which is something that's really important for the world to know of, because you're a good man now. You're a really good man. What would that do to your perception of feeling bad about hurting your wife?" I said, "Well, I still feel bad that I did it, but I would, if she knew it was going to happen and agreed to it, it was part of a master plan. We were acting out, this part in the script, and she did it purposefully to help me. I wouldn't feel bad anymore. I would feel like I would be so indebted to my wife and so thankful to my wife for having taken on that role and played that role."
Right.
One of the things the Mosaic says in the story of the Mosaic is nothing is as it seems. We have no idea what's actually happening in the world that we think we have every idea of what's happening in. And that story that I just told you certainly illustrates my dumbfoundedness in thinking the world was one way and seeing that it possibly, I'm not saying that's true, it was what a psychic told me.
Right.
But the possibility of the truth of that statement became so overwhelmingly possible that I had to admit that possibility existed.
Sure.
Can you see where something like that might be possible in people you think you've hurt?
Yeah, I mean, again, yeah, there's definitely an opportunity that maybe it's all part of a plan, right? Or part of what is necessary. Sometimes we want to think that this tragedy or hurt is a necessary evil for us to become a better person. But that's an awful lot of weight to put on the other people around you. That's a lot of responsibility to have to look at those situations, like with your wife or someone who's passed, to say that their sole purpose was to do that.
She wasn't saying it was her sole purpose, but she said she made an agreement because she knew it would turn me. She loved me so much that she would go through what she had to go through to allow me to get to the place that I had to get to.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not trying to convince or do anything. I just wanted to lob over the net a possibility.
Yes.
That the things that we see are not necessarily the things that are. They might be different than what we see.
Yeah.
We'll always encounter that possibility.
Definitely.
What are you most excited by?
The pandemic being over. Oh, leaving the house and being free again. Yeah, and growing old. I'm enjoying it. I like being older. I very much enjoy my years as I mature. I think I'm very excited about what's coming next in life. I used to fear that part of life. When you're younger, you think, 50, 60, 70, these are old ancient days. And now they're beautiful. It's a beautiful time. I feel more comfortable with who I am. I am not afraid of as many things as I used to be. I'm very much looking forward to feeling more of that as I age.
Love that. What are you most hopeful for?
Grandchildren. I don't want to rush either one of my children. I have two. Not at all. They need to take their time, but I am very, very much looking forward to that.
Do you think it's more important to... Both of these are super important, so there's no wrong answer. Do you think it's more important for you now to find a platform to speak the message you feel you have to say to the world? Or do you think it's more important for you to create a platform where you can listen to other people speak their message?
Oh, God. I just read a book called The Bold Spirit about a woman who walked across the country in 1800s. She walked from Washington to New York, and nobody ever heard her story. And so I've been thinking a lot about that, the fact that her story was hidden for a lot of reasons, and I won't go into it. Just there's some shame and some problems with that, and I've been thinking a lot about that, about my life story and about the story of those around me, and how important there are pieces of that I'd like not to get missed. So when you were saying the first statement, do I need to have a platform to share what I have to say? I do think it's very important that we not miss the opportunity to pass down those stories of our lives, even the things that we think are insignificant, because to kind of tag on what we were saying earlier, you don't have to live it to learn from it. You can learn from other people's experiences. So I think that's very important. But I also, as we talked earlier too, I love other people, and I love to hear other stories, and I love to hear about their world. And I think I too can't experience everything in the world firsthand. And it's only through listening to other people that I can learn things and take on more information, knowledge, and experiences through those stories. So I would have a hard time answering the question. Yes, like you said, they're both good answers. But my first immediate was to tell my story, and I'm sure it comes from that recent, the book that I read. That's where my gut was at.
You have 3 minutes right now
Okay.
to speak to a world that is longing to hear what it is your story is. I know it's not a lot of time,
No, 3 minutes and not a lot.
but give it your best shot to put into 3 minutes what it is you want to say to this world.
Oh my God, I'm gonna waste half of that time just thinking about what to say.
That's okay.
um, I'll go with what I've been talking to my son about, which is there is no wrong answer. Life is very complicated. And I think that something I've definitely learned as I've gotten older is you agonize over to go left or right, pick this career, this job, move to this house, do this now, do it later. And the truth is there's really no right answer. Every path will get hurdles will be put in the way and obstacles even when you start down it, and you'll end up where you need to be. So just pick something. The worst place to be is in that land of indecision. Pick something and get moving. Life is too short to sit around and try to decide what to do next. I definitely feel that.
I love that answer. For people who, we're going to have all of you're going to send me your headshot and all of your
Sure.
social media links, please,
Will do.
when we get off the phone. So all of that will be in the show notes.
Okay.
But is there one particular way people can get in touch with you the best if they want to get in touch with you and have more dialogue or come on one of your journeys when this world allows us to travel again?
Absolutely. I will give you my email. They can email me directly. And I have a YouTube channel where we talk real stories from real people about travel stories. So if anybody wants to join that, we can do that. And then Facebook is probably the next way to check in with me. So I'll give you all of those ways of connecting.
Perfect. I would like to be on your real stories with real people about travel things. I would love that.
Send it right over. You'll get it.
I would. Because I spent when I was in school, I realized I had taken all my undergraduate courses to get a graduate degree in psychology,
Okay.
and I just realized that wasn't the place to go. So I dropped out of school, and I put my thumb on the road and started hitchhiking around the world.
Wonderful.
So
Oh,
I'd be happy to share
love to
those
hear.
stories with you on your thing. I want to thank you, Cindy, for taking the time to and for allowing me even more to dig into some of the things that you said. I normally don't dig quite as deeply, but I was so interested in your thought patterns on it.
Sure.
That less about challenging you, but more about just understanding what it is you had to say.
I appreciate it. I definitely appreciate the dialogue. It's been good thinking.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you for taking the time to share that with us and with me. For those people who listen to the show, I want to thank you also for coming here and being a part of this show. And if you like what Cindy's saying, the best thing you could do is share the show with people you like. When we like something, we share it with people we like. Why not do that here, right?
Right.
And if you've been thinking of a trip and thinking you don't know quite what to do, or you feel like you're alone and you can't go on a trip by yourself, give Cindy a call and contact her, and I'm sure she'll set you up with something that is fabulous for you to do. Is there anything you want to say before we head out?
No, I just want to say thank you. I mean, I've done a few of these myself and I really enjoyed the dialogue. I like that you have, hard questions and you made me think. They weren't just easy questions to answer. So I always like that part of the conversation. I appreciate that very much. I enjoyed it.
Thank you for allowing me to ask hard questions. And I always think there was an organization that recruited me to be part of their organization. I ended up not being a part of it, but I loved one of the things they said, and I wish that I had come up with it on my own because it's what I do. But I always have to credit them because they were the ones that came up with it. Their name of the organization is Vistage, and what they do is they take CEOs and they train CEOs how to run retreats for other CEOs.
Okay.
And one of the things they say is that you think you're going to come here and we're going to answer your questions. Really what we're going to do is question your answers. And I love that because I thought that was so much what I do in general. I want people who are listening to take a moment and just see. I didn't know Cindy. I didn't know. I didn't know what her age would be, what her color of her skin would be, where she would come, where she was coming from, what she believed. I knew nothing about her. Within a very few minutes within this room, I felt like she was my friend already. I want to encourage all of you to reach out to someone who you don't know, someone who's a stranger now, and see within a few minutes of just inviting them to share with you what they believe, if you don't feel like you've become friends. When we live in a world full of strangers, the world becomes a strange place. But when we live in a world of friends, the world becomes a friendly place. And we're at a place where the world could use being a friendlier place right now. So reach out to someone you don't know. Give them the opportunity to get to know you. Give them the opportunity to tell you who they are. You don't need to fix them. You don't need to change them. You don't need to help them. Just reach out to them and listen to them. Until the next stranger comes into the room, I want to invite you to be kind to each other, to love each other, to listen to each other, to not allow each other to be strangers. Be friends and create a friendly world, which will only grow and grow and grow. Until next time, thank you so much. See you in the room with the next stranger. Ciao.